I think this is an interesting. Let's World Economic Forum. All right, World Economic Forum. Okay, so this is their page. I want their page. I want the history. There we go. Let's go with the Wikipedia page. The World Economic Forum is an international non-governmental organization think tank wish I could be in a think tank. I think a lot. I think my thoughts would tank some shit. Anyway, as a think tank and lobbying organization based in Cologne, Canton of Geneva, Switzerland. It was founded on February 24th, 1971 by German engineer Klaus Schwab. Well, there you go. So he wasn't elected or selected to be the person, the main speaker, because of his superior abilities. Apparently it's his shit. It's like how Henry Ford wanted to talk about the Jews that control the world, and nobody would publish his articles, and he's like, but I'm Henry fucking Ford, what do you mean you won't publish my shit? And they were like, sorry. So he bought his own newspaper so he could at least have it in writing somewhere. Should look that shit up too, now that you mention it. Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. The foundation, which is mostly funded by its 1,000 member companies, typically global enterprises with more than $5 billion in turnover, as well as public subsidies, state that its own mission is improving the state of the world by engaging business, political, academic, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. So typically, their 1,000 members each have over $5 billion in turnover. That's a lot of zeros. That's like trillions. We go into the trillion, right? The forum claims that a globalized world is best managed by a self-selected coalition of multinational corporations, governments, and civil society organizations, CSOs, which it expresses through initiatives like the Great Reset and the Global Redesign. See, this is what they do to make the the solution sound like the problem. Because it's right. You know, our society as a whole should be governed by one global group that gives everyone the same standard of living, and gives everyone the same rights and right to life and whatever. Like no country should be able to discriminate, should be able to kill its gay people or discriminate against its women just because some invisible fucking border exists. The forum, it states that it views periods of global instability, such as the financial crisis of 2007 through 2008, and the COVID-19 pandemic as windows of opportunity to intensify its pragmatic efforts. Financial crisis, 2007, 2008. Epstein did it. Epstein did it. That's why he got punished in 2009. The WEF, I mean, they had to punish somebody. He wasn't like really punished. You know what I mean? The WEF is known mostly for its annual meeting at the end of January in Davos, a mountain resort in the Eastern Alps region of Switzerland. Why would anyone want to go there? Like, if you could do a fucking badass, expensive retreat, why wouldn't you want to go somewhere fucking tropical? It's weird. The meeting brings together some 3,000 paying members and selected participants, among whom are investors, business leaders, political leaders, economists, celebrities, and journalists, for up to 5 days to discuss global issues across 500 sessions. 5 days, they have 100 sessions per day? What does that even mean? It's crazy because it really sounds like Bilderberg, and it sounds like Scientology. You know, like you could really switch this out and you know, switch out the who this is, who this description is for multiple different things, and it would fit. Aside from Davos, the organization convenes regional conferences. It produces a series of reports, engages its members in sector-specific initiatives, and provides a platform for leaders from selected stakeholder groups to collaborate on projects and initiatives. The World Economic Forum and its annual meeting in Davos have received criticism over the years, including allegations of the organization's corporate capture of global and democratic institutions, institutional whitewashing initiatives, the public cost of security. The public cost of security. So when they do these meetings, we pay for it. They don't even pay for it. The security has to be extra high, and it's on our dime. We have to provide security and pay for it. That's fucking crazy. The organization's tax-exempt status. Geez, that's weird. Like I just said, it sounds like Scientology, doesn't it? This organization is tax-exempt. They have over 1,000 members, most of whom typically have over $5 billion in turnover each year, US dollars. So we're talking about $5 trillion. Or is it 50? Wait. If they have 1,000, yeah, no, and 3 zeros, that's all you get. So if it's 5, if they each have 5 billion, you add 3 more zeros, you get 5 trillion. Right, gotcha. Unclear decision processes and membership criteria, a lack of financial transparency, and the environmental footprint of its annual meeting. Man, that seems like a lot of shit to be accused of and guilty of and still be allowed to exist on the public's dime. They're a non-government organization that we pay for their security and all that shit. How does that even work? Professor Klaus Schwab opens the inaugural European Management Forum in Davos in 1971. The European Management Forum. Do you understand what that, like, we manage European. We manage Europe. F.W. de Klerk and Nelson Mandela shake hands at the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum held in Davos in January of 1992. What a shock! What a fucking shock! Nelson Mandela. Huh. But isn't he a good guy? Look at that shit. Henry Kissinger with former USSR leaders at the WEF annual meeting in 1992. Look at that. His giant face. Ugh, he's such an awful human being. That's what we need to look at. You know what? I'm going to go and do Henry Kissinger real quick. Henry Alfred Kissinger. Born May 27th, 1923. Died November 29th, 2023. He was 100 years old. Was an American diplomat and political scientist who served as the United States Secretary of State from 73 to 77 and the National Security Advisor from 69 to 75 in presidential administrations of Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. So you would think like this man would have pretty significant military training, right? Like wouldn't if he was like the it's like Pete Buttigieg, right? The gay mayor of the North New England town, whatever it was, that rose to prominence in the presidency and then stepped down willingly because of COVID, and who is now the Secretary of Transportation. I'm sure his degree and his history, he has a rich history in designing roads and figuring out, knows all about cars, ins and outs of cars, and has that degree in that engineering degree that you would think it would take to be the fucking head guy of transportation, right? He wasn't just given that position because he did his job. Right? That wasn't it. He's the best car transportation guy in the country. So now he's Secretary of Transportation. Are you really paying? Are you following along? Are you paying attention here? This devout Zionist, very, very devout Israel supporter. One of the main reasons why Israel was or is what it is now, and always his loyalty was always obvious. This guy, he was the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor. He has those credentials. Let's find out how. This guy is the biggest piece of shit. Military service. He served in the U.S. Army from 43 to 46. His rank was a sergeant in the 84th Infantry Division, and then the 970th Counterintelligence Corps Detachment. Counterintelligence Corps Detachment. Battles. World War II. The Battle of the Bulge. Military's Bronze Star. I bet. Well, I guess that shuts me up, doesn't it? Born in Germany, Kissinger immigrated to the United States in 1938 as a Jewish refugee fleeing Nazi persecution. That's impossible. Hitler was 1938 Time Magazine Man of the Year. There wasn't Nazi persecution yet. Ow. But I had to stop from hitting the ground. Okay. This is the same story that David Sensor has. I can already tell. So Kissinger immigrated to the United States. It didn't say him and his family. It just says he did. We'll see. He served in the U.S. Army during World War II. After the war, he attended Harvard, where he excelled academically. You know, lots of people go to war, fight in horrible historic battles like the Battle of the Bulge, then come back and go to Harvard. Fuck yeah, that's how that works. He later became a professor of government at the university and earned an international reputation as an expert on nuclear weapons and foreign policy. Man, that's awesome. He acted as a consultant to government agencies, think tanks, and the presidential campaigns of Nelson Rockefeller and Nixon before being appointed as National Security Advisor and later Secretary of State to President Nixon. Or by President Nixon. An advocate of a pragmatic approach to geopolitics known as realpolitik, Kissinger pioneered the policy of detente with the Soviet Union, orchestrated an opening of relations with China, engaged in shuttle diplomacy in the Middle East to end the Yom Kippur War, and negotiated the Paris Peace Accords. Man, this fucking guy, he sounds like a fucking mythical hero, which ended American involvement in the Vietnam War. He got us out of there. He's the reason why we got out of the war. He must be a good guy. For his role in negotiating the Accords, he was awarded the 1973 Nobel Peace Prize to controversy. Kissinger is also associated with controversial U.S. policies, including its bombing of Cambodia, involvement in the 1973 Chilean coup d'etat, support for the Argentinian military junta in its dirty war, support for Indonesia in its invasion of East Timor, and support for Pakistan during the Bangladesh Liberation War and Bangladesh genocide. Widely considered by scholars to have been an effective Secretary of State, Kissinger was also accused by critics of war crimes for the civilian death toll of the policies he pursued and for his role in facilitating U.S. support for authoritarian regimes. After leaving government, Kissinger founded Kissinger Associates, an international geopolitical consulting firm which ran from 1982 until his death. He authored over a dozen books on diplomatic history and international relations. His advice was sought by American presidents of both political parties. Early life and education. Kissinger was born Heinz Alfred Kissinger on May 27, 1923 in Fürth, Bavaria, Germany. He was the son of a homemaker, Paula and Stern, from Lutherhausen, Lutherschazen, and Louis Kissinger, a school teacher. He had a younger brother, Walter, who was a businessman. Kissinger's family was German Jewish. German Jewish isn't a thing. Jewish is not a thing. It's not a place well, my mother is from Germany and my father is from Jewish. Like, that's not how that works. But they get away with that shit. That's so weird. Nobody else gets to do that. His great grandfather, Mayer Lob, adopted Kissinger as his surname in 1817, taking it from the Bavarian spa town of Bad Kissingen. In his childhood, what? Isn't it weird how they changed their names and shit? Like, I always think that's weird when you hear about, like, the Jews in Hollywood all had to change their names and hide their identities. And it's like, well, from who? Because the Jews were the producers, directors, and the string pullers in Hollywood, as they are today. So who were the Jewish actors hiding from other than us? Definitely weren't hiding from their own. So why did so many of them change their names? Why did so many of them hide their Jewish identities? In his childhood, Kissinger enjoyed playing soccer. He played for the youth team of SPVGG? That's a word? Firth. SPVG, SP, capital VGG, that's all one word, space, FU with an umlaut, or with the two dots, not the umlaut, RTH, so Big Firth. One of the nation's best clubs at the time, of course, where he was a star. In a 2022 BBC interview, Kissinger vividly recalled being 9 years old in 1933 and learning of Adolf Hitler's election to Chancellor of Germany, which proved to be a profound turning point for the Kissinger family. So he remembers when somebody was at 9 years old, he remembers Hitler being elected because that was a significant thing. Hitler was supposedly the fucking cat's meow. During Nazi rule, Kissinger and his friends were regularly harassed and beaten by Hitler youth gangs. Oh man, it's so stupid. Kissinger sometimes defied the segregation imposed by the Nazi racial laws by sneaking into soccer stadiums to watch matches, often receiving beatings from security guards. Man, all those beatings, I'm sure they just made him a better person, and he didn't carry any resentment with him for the rest of his life towards non-Jewish people for beating him so much. As a result of the Nazis' anti-Semitic laws, Kissinger was unable to gain attendance to the gymnasium, and his father was dismissed from his teaching job. Again, all they had to do was take off the fucking armband. If anybody asks them, they go, no, I'm Italian. My name's Tony. To New York. On August 20th, 1938, when Kissinger was 15 years old, he and his family fled Germany to avoid further Nazi persecution. Again, Hitler was like a global superstar in 1938. He wasn't, the bad stuff wasn't even happening yet, supposedly. The family briefly stopped in London before arriving in New York City on September 5th. Isn't it crazy how easily entire families used to be able to travel wherever they wanted to across the world back in those days? Before we had modern day transportation, and all they had was shit like the flying train that you can easily find videos of all over the web. Before we had those things, or before we had our modern day conveniences, people were traveling across the fucking globe like it was no big deal. They landed in New York City on September 5th. Kissinger later downplayed the influence his experiences of Nazi persecution had on his policies, writing that the Germany of my youth had a great deal of order and very little justice. It was not the sort of place likely to inspire devotion to order in the abstract. Not the sort of place not the sort of place likely to inspire devotion to order in the abstract. What? When I don't understand things, I ask why. She's smiling at me. I need you to explain something to me. No, not yet. Okay.
I might have insurance in the next couple days.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. The Germany of my youth had a great deal of order and very little justice. It was not the sort of place likely to inspire devotion to order in the abstract. You didn't hear that.
No, I did. Oh.
Germany of my youth had a great deal of order and very little justice. It was not the sort of place likely to inspire devotion to order in the abstract. What the fuck does that mean?
It encouraged chaos, I guess.
Devotion to order in the abstract? But it was that type of place.
Order in the unknown when everything's up in the air. I don't know.
Had a great deal of order and very little justice. It was not the sort of place to likely inspire devotion to order in the abstract.
It doesn't inspire chaos or going against the rules or questioning things, perhaps? I gotta pee.
What? Why would you say something
Why would you
so...
word it that way? Very strange.
Nevertheless, this is Kissinger, by the way. Nevertheless, many scholars, including Kissinger's biographer Walter Isaacson, have argued that his experiences influenced the formation of his realist approach to foreign policy. The arrogance in which they say these things is just, it's really phenomenal. It's like, he's not. He's a piece of shit. He towards the end of his life, once the internet was a thing and people around the world started to know, because he is the they. When we're always talking about they do this and they do that, they make this bad decision, they make that bad decision. We don't actually have like a face for it. We don't actually have an identity for it in mind. But we always know it's a they that does it. And it turns out that when you see that list of things that was listed, that's just to scratch the surface. But he's the guy that's behind so much of the negativity during his time in power. He's a really, really awful human being who, especially when it comes to Israel and it comes to the Jewish people, like, there's no way, if the narrative of his life is true, if he truly experienced what he said he experienced, and he was made to like wash dishes and stuff, if all that's true, there's literally no way that he grows up without chips in his shoulder. A huge chip towards the goyim in his shoulder, and how he was treated and his people were treated, and and it turns out that he just so happens to be the guy that's behind multiple genocides of goyim afterwards. And I so absolutely don't believe the Holocaust narrative that I'm told. And the thing is, I come from supposed Holocaust survivor. So, I don't know. I tend to think my family was Project Operation Paperclip. But what do I know? I'm crazy. But if I'm wrong, and we're not Operation Paperclip, then my grandfather was actually a concentration camp survivor and went through some really horrible shit. Either way, like the standard narrative, standard argument used against someone like me can't work because, you know, I'm directly involved. My family's directly involved any way you slice it. So when I'm talking about it didn't happen the way they say it happened, it's from that perspective. You can't just hide behind, oh, well, you're just a denier, and that makes me upset. I keep talking about this with people, like, at least trying to. I said something, somebody posted something in one of the UFC groups about looking for some Cody Garbrandt cards. If anybody can help me out, blah, blah, blah. And I said, have you checked the dumpster? Because he's trash. And, one of the moderators or whatever came on and was like, everybody has a PC, dude. We don't need to be disrespectful here. And I was like, I can't disrespect you unless you allow me to. What do if you like this dude, what does me thinking he's trash have anything to do with it? The only thing I said, if I came on here and said, Cody is 9 feet tall and weighs 400 pounds, nobody would be like, dude, that's disrespectful, because everybody knows it's not true. But when I come in and insinuate that he's a trash fighter, everybody gets upset and says that's disrespectful, because they know that shit's true. You only disrespect people when they allow it. Anyway. And that goes towards this shit. If you're disrespected by me reading the fucking Wikipedia history of Henry Kissinger and then having an opinion on it, you should go somewhere else. Or you should tell me what I'm wrong about. But, like, you being upset about it, how? What are you upset about? It's the truth, right? I'm not reading the conspiracy theory page. I don't think I get enough credit for that. I'm not, this is Alex Jones's page. I'm reading what they want me to read. It's like if I was in a history class and instead of, just sitting there listening, I was able to talk back with the professor that was reading the lesson. That's all this is. I'm reading you the lesson. If you have something to say, if you think I'm wrong about something, by all means, let me know. I need to clean that up. Kissinger's biography. Oh yeah. Kissinger spent his high school years in the German Jewish. They refer to him now multiple times as German Jewish. What is German Jewish? I know where Germany is. Where is Jewishania? How are you something that's like nobody else does that? Everybody else that does something, they're like African American, Italian American. Like, it's stupid, but at least it's something. It's a place.
Well, they do that with Muslims.
I hear that more now. I have been hearing that more lately. But that's a whole different can of worms. That's like how, Iranian, yeah. That's how Iranians won't tell you who they are. We're Persian and stuff because of the unbelievable discrimination they receive. So they're much more likely to say I'm Muslim American than say I'm Iranian American or something like that, knowing that I'm Iraqi American. That if
they're saying it, I'm German Jew to incite that feeling of compassion, like, oh, your people were totally persecuted.
No. Well,
that's why else would they do that? That's the only reason. Or but they to do be that, like wink, wink, nod, nod. I'm in the club too.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, when you compare the two, like I can understand why somebody would say I'm Muslim American over I'm Iranian American or Iraqi American because of the discrimination they receive. The Jewish person can't even say anything. Like,
They feel that they're persecuted.
no, they're you're saying the opposite. They're not being persecuted. They're being. We're not talking about a place that's being persecuted. There's not a, other than Israel. There's not another place where they can say they're from and people go, oh, that's the Jews from there. That's not how that works. They're solely identifying with this thing because that's all. They don't have a place. There is no place for it, but they want it to be more important than it is, and for it to be something like other people have a place. But again, Jews aren't persecuted. There's nowhere in this country, there's no history, there's nothing you can point to where Jews were persecuted and it went unpunished. That doesn't exist in our, that narrative is ingrained in our minds. We think it's that way. I
They want it that way.
I know. I think about that movie, School Ties with Brendan Fraser. Remember that? Where he's I gotta say this without laughing now. Where he's the star quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
The Jewish guy that's the star quarterback.
Heidi was Jewish.
Right. The star.
Well, that's because that's how people live.
The star quarterback.
Yeah.
He was a star quarterback. The star quarterback that was Jewish, but see, no, this is what they say. This is that narrative they say. So Brendan Fraser is this Jewish kid from this small farm community or whatever, and he goes to this prestigious school. That's Catholic school, like maybe it's Notre Dame, or maybe they're hinting it's Notre Dame. But he has to hide his Jewishness. So, instead of taking off his chain, he just tucks it in.
Yeah, because it'd be disrespectful to take it off.
Why?
Because that would be
to who?
Betrayal of God.
Who is that? Oh, so God's going to be like, okay, I see that around your neck, under your shirt. If you had that 2 feet down in your pocket, you still had it on you, as a show of respect, but I know you're trying to make your life better, and through making your life better, you could maybe make changes to this crazy situation that we're in. Instead of you getting beat up, no, I want you to get beat up. Go on and put that shit up. So put it in your fucking breast pocket. It is close to your heart. Your pocket is close to your heart. What are we, ants here? Are we talking from ant physics? That's a long way. If you try to walk, that's a long way, dude. Like, it's you're saying what, right, and I'm responding to it as people should. Because that's fucking nonsense. But again, that you worship a God that's so petty that it wouldn't understand you not wanting to get beat up by putting your chain in your pocket or in your,
No, it's better to be a martyr, to stand up for your beliefs and your God than be a martyr.
What Torah verse or Talmud verse says they have to wear a Star of David around their neck? There isn't one. So that argument's null and void.
It's the same thing as when I see Christians wearing a crucifix.
No, it's not.
Not a cross, a crucifix.
Christians wearing a crucifix
is celebrating his death.
Is insane.
Disgusting.
It's disgusting. But that's not the same thing as the Star of David. But again, there's no verse that says they would have to wear. It's like the whole thing about the Jews wearing their armbands and badges so they could be identified for World War II. There's not a thing I'm not willing to do to ensure your and their survival. So if it means we have to wear armbands that say we're Jewish for us to be considered like, oh, he's got an armband, let him through. Like, if that's what we'd have to do, I would do it. If there's nothing that I would be like, oh no, I'm too proud to do this for my family's survival. So you're going to just have to kill us. I'm not going to cut my hair. Like, get out of here. Whatever you want. If it comes down to us surviving or being killed, taken on trains and shit like that.
People die for their principles all the time.
Yeah, but why would a God want you to do that instead of living a good life? escaping whatever situation you're
Because your
in.
good life will be guaranteed in the afterlife, which is
But
way
why would
longer
God
than your
want
life
that?
here.
Why would God want that? What would God wouldn't want you to just keep your children safe, do whatever it takes to keep your children safe? I
That's
mean, we
his
know
job.
how he feels about his children.
That's his job.
No, he doesn't do a very good job. You don't just be like, all right, God's got you.
He's got a master plan,
Yeah.
and you're not intelligent enough to be privy to it. So
Okay, well, just
you
give me a
have to
window.
have faith.
Just give me a window. Because what I'm seeing doesn't at all make sense. It seems like
Supposed to.
it seems like man-made bullshit to trick us into thinking that we should just shut up and have faith instead of arguing against what we're taught and arguing against who's teaching us and keeping us in bondage by doing so.
That's very presumptuous that you be remotely as intelligent as the creator.
Okay. And so
You're not.
okay. I didn't say I was.
So what makes you think that he doesn't know better?
Because children are I have eyes. I know what's going on. I see everything. This life where these Jews control everything and violate people and are genociding and then on this side we have the Hollywood pedos and all that whole thing. I don't want to worship that God that's cool with that. But as long as you tithe, as long as you kick your 10% to the church, then God's gonna let you. I'm not cool with that.
They didn't pay enough.
Yeah. Well, again, that's not a God I want to be associated with. That's a really fucked up, sounding like man kind of God to
Well,
me.
then you can go join the devil
Yep.
in hell
Because
and burn for eternity.
if I don't believe in God, I definitely believe in the devil. the bad guy.
Well, just because you don't believe in it doesn't
I mean,
mean it's not there.
Do you realize how stupid that is? Like, it's one thing to say, "Oh man, I must be getting favor
Just
for all
because
this
you
good
don't believe
luck."
that's black doesn't mean it's not black.
To have this belief that there's this evil thing going around, like kicking your like, "Oh, God damn it! Stop it! Oh, God damn it! Stop
Didn't you see
kicking my feet!"
Bedazzled?
Like, it's so stupid.
You didn't see Bedazzled.
It's so
Come on
the
now.
thing about it is it's so much more arrogant than people believe. Like this notion that Christianity is somehow the absence of ego. It's absolutely not. If you think the God of the universe is listening to your prayers and giving you favor over some other person that you know, you got the job because you prayed enough and blah blah blah.
Well,
At the
think about
same
all
time,
the contributing factors. You know, have you been a good person? Like, what else have you done in
but
your life?
you have
Not
no
just
idea.
that moment of prayer.
You don't know what you've done compared to what that
Right.
person's done.
The divine does, though.
Right. And then to think that when the bad things happen, the
Just
bad
fucked
version
up.
of that is also like giving you focus. Like
Lessons.
it's got all these other things to do. God has the sun to work and the stars to turn on
Oh
and
no, he
and
set those algorithms.
breathing
Alright.
fucking life into babies and all this other getting people in car accidents but not hurting them. You know what I mean? Like God's got a lot going on.
Oh yeah, everybody's tested all the time.
Right. And he's stopping to be wait, what? Hang on. What? Oh, okay, yeah, you get the job. Okay, cool. Like, it's so arrogant, but then also think like the devil's like, what's he doing up there? I can get him. Like, oh my god, it's so fucking arrogant.
How does he see through all the smoke?
He's got magic glasses. Almost.
God.
I don't care.
What cow? Stop yelling at me. Don't be a jerk, Nick.
You want to play on your account? No, I don't. I just want to play on different. Like what?
Nathan, just chill out, dude.
I don't want to play on my account, but his account doesn't suck. You know?
Why? Why?
Because I haven't upgraded all the characters.
Okay, well, work with what you have, man.
Yeah,
Guys were apart all fucking day yesterday.
You're gonna be done in a minute anyway. I'm not gonna be much longer, so just get over it. Okay, Nick. Now you can switch the game.
Why?
Because I hear you, man.
I'm not talking to Nathan.
Oh, really? Aw, that wasn't to Nathan?
No, it was not. I just did my ultimate to a bunch of guys, so I said, guess what? Yes, you did that. And then you said ball.
Oh, well, I don't care about that. Nathan, get over it. Let's see. Kissinger spent his high school years in German Jewish community in Washington Heights, Manhattan. That's some hoity-toity right there. Although Kissinger assimilated quickly into American culture, he never lost his pronounced German accent due to childhood shyness that made him hesitant to speak. Gosh, that's weird, huh? That's how they explain it? Although they were here all this time, he never lost his accent because he was so shy. And then he became Henry Kissinger. Do you get it? Like,
That's crazy. My dad came here when he was 13. Barely spoke the language. Had a super thick accent. And got the shit kicked out of him by his classmates and other kids in the neighborhood regularly for mispronouncing words and being different and having an accent, to the point where the man mastered the English language, used vocabulary that most people didn't even know existed, and had no trace of an accent, like real quick, to stop getting his ass kicked. So you mean to tell me this man went through that's the same age range, my dad, same age range. He didn't
your
get his
dad
ass
wouldn't be
kicked?
100.
No, my dad would be
No, he died.
80.
He died last year at 100. So he was 20 years before him.
Okay, well,
Kissinger.
80, still like in that same time frame where
It's worse.
it was very much discriminated against. So yeah, that nobody fucked with him.
He was shy. He was shy. After his first year at George Washington High School, he completed school at night while working in a shaving brush factory during the day. Again, that's a convenient way for no one to remember him, right? This is how they do it. They create these narratives because, it's like, man, nobody remembers him from this town. Nobody remembers going to school with him. Seriously, you guys? What's the problem?
It's not raining anymore. Maybe they should stop the game.
Yeah, you guys know it's not raining anymore. You know it's not raining anymore. So shouldn't you probably stop then? Kissinger studied accounting at the City College of New York, excelling academically as a part-time student while continuing his work. His studies were interrupted in early 1943 when he was drafted into the U.S. Army. This tiny German Jewish guy
That had a thick accent still. Got
has
drafted
a
into the
thick accent and was just here escaping that, supposedly. Just immigrated here, is now...
Don't you have to? Was he a U.S. citizen though?
Wait.
Because you have to be a U.S. citizen to even during draft time to get drafted.
Okay, listen to this. On August 20th, 1938, when Kissinger was 15 years old, he and his family fled to Germany to avoid further Nazi persecution. Family briefly stopped in London and arrived in New York on September 5th. Later downplayed the blah blah blah. Kissinger spent his he's 15, so that means he's going into high school, right?
So he came here when he was 15?
That's what they say.
Okay,
He
so
came here at 15 and
yes, he'd
then
be going into
spent
high school.
his high school years in the German Jewish community of Washington Heights, Manhattan. He assimilated quickly to American culture but never lost his pronounced accent. After his first year at George Washington High School, he completed his school at night while working at a shaving brush factory during the day. So, he studied accounting in the City College of New York.
How do you get
In
his
40.
citizenship?
So, he was drafted at 20?
I mean, that's 5 years. He could have gotten it in the 5 years he was here, but there's no
But
mention of it.
he was drafted at 20 years old?
Yeah, the draft went from what, 18 to 24?
26. This is weird that, like, you have a tiny German Jewish guy with an accent. We were all scared of I mean, we're terrified of Germans, and we think spies are everywhere, and families' houses are being disrupted because American spy propaganda was everywhere. Yet they brought in this 20-year-old guy, huh? He must have been a specimen. So here we jump to the Army. Kissinger underwent basic training at Camp Croft in Spartanburg, South Carolina on June 19th, 1943, while stationed in South Carolina. He became a naturalized U.S. citizen. The Army sent him to study engineering at Lafayette College in Pennsylvania under the Army Specialized Training Program, but the program was canceled and Kissinger was reassigned to the 84th Infantry Division. There, he made the acquaintance of Fritz Kramer, a fellow immigrant from Germany who noted Kissinger's fluency in German and his intellect and arranged for him to be assigned to the division's military intelligence. Oh, fucking lucky guy. Guess that thick accent he never lost paid off for him in the long run, huh?
Yeah.
That is convenient. That is like you want to talk about luck, right? Like
Nathan, first capture the area is not the boss.
okay, dude, Nate, play the way that you would play with me, man. Don't be a jerk, just be cool. To us it seems like trivial bullshit, right? But to them it's really important. It's really serious shit. Like it's not just video games, it's the dynamic between them being stepped on that they don't
but I'm
like.
also trying to remind them to put it into perspective.
For sure.
Because at the end of the day, it is just a video game.
For sure, and they hear that all the time. But we as adults, we have to respect that. We have to understand that we see it as just a video game, but they don't. What? Okie dokie. Kissinger saw combat with the division and volunteered for hazardous intelligence duties during the Battle of the Bulge. He volunteered. On April 10, 1945, he participated in the liberation of the Hanover-Alham concentration camp, a subcamp of the Neuengamme concentration camp. At the time, Kissinger wrote in his journal, "I had never seen people degraded to the level that people were in Elm. They barely looked human. They were skeletons." Good thing no one took pictures, because that would be too scary. And it's a good thing he's another one of those famous people who just happens to have journals we can go back and look at. I bet he has calendars too.
Oh, sure. Well, the journal acts as a calendar if he does it properly.
Yeah, but individual calendars as well. After the initial shock, however, Kissinger was relatively silent about his wartime service. During the American advance into Germany, Kissinger, though only a private, was put in charge. Though only a private was put in charge of the administration of the city of Kefred because of a lack of German speakers on the division's intelligence staff. You're telling me that in a war with Germany, in a country full of Germans, that's awesome. In a country full of Germans, we didn't have a bunch of German speakers?
No.
Within 8 days, he had established a civilian administration. Kissinger was then reassigned to the Counterintelligence Corps, CIC, where he became a CIC special agent, holding the enlisted rank of sergeant. He was given charge of a team in Hanover assigned to tracking down the Gestapo officers, assigned to tracking down Gestapo officers and other saboteurs, for which he was awarded the Bronze Star. Kissinger drew up a comprehensive list of all known Gestapo employees in the Bergstraße region and had them rounded up. By the end of July, 12 men had been arrested. In March 1947, Fritz Gierk, Hans Hollenbruch, Michael Roth, and Karl Stratmann were subsequently caught and tried by the Deutsche Military Tribunal for killing 2 American prisoners of war. The 4 men were all found guilty and sentenced to death. They were executed by hanging in Langsberg prison in October 1948. Well, good for him. But they were killed for killing Americans. That's strange. In June 1945, Kissinger was made Commandant of Benshim Metro CIC Detachment, Bergstraße District of Hesse, with responsibility for denazification of the district. He was responsible for denazification. Although he possessed absolute authority and powers of arrest, Kissinger took care to avoid abuses against the local population by his command. He was given a population to command. And lucky for them, he was nice about it. In June 1945, Kissinger was made Commandant. Oh, wait, I already read that. In 1946, Kissinger was reassigned to teach at the European Command Intelligence School at Camp King and, as a civilian employee, following his separation from the Army, continued to serve in this role. What? 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 You should, shouldn't you? Well, you can thank your mom.
As long as I don't hear any more fighting. Yes.
So, basically, in 1943, he got there. And by 46, no, by 46, he had already done all those other things. In 3 years, he had done all those other things and was now assigned to be a teacher. In 3 years. Bronze Star. It's like we're talking about like Inspector Gadget here. Kissinger recalled that his experience in the Army made me feel like an American. Kissingers who called soldiers meatbags, useless meatbags. Kissinger earned his Bachelor of Arts, summa cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa, in political science from Harvard College in 1950. So, he's made a teacher in Bresheim, was reassigned to teach at the European Command Intelligence School at Camp King. Camp King is a site on the outskirts of Obersalzhausen in Germany. Okay. I mean, did he do it online? As a civilian employee following his separation from the army, he continued to serve in this role. I mean, we're talking about like, I mean, if he's assigned this role to teach at the Command Intelligence School, how did he not be in the military anymore? Like, how, as a civilian employee following his separation from the army, how do you separate from the army? I've never heard it like that. That's not how that works. You don't just separate from the army. You're a Bronze Star, you're a teacher, you're this dip, you're all these things, and you just separate from the army? What the fuck is that? I don't know. I'm sure there's some military person that's like, you're an idiot. That's just so in 1946 he's assigned to be a teacher at the Camp King in Germany, and by 1950
Yeah, but they aren't hard. I'll take Big Mom.
So somehow he earned a Bachelor of Arts summa cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa in political science from Harvard in 1950. So within 3 years, he now has the Bachelor of Science, the BA from Harvard, where he lived in Adams House and studied under William Yandell Elliott. So when did he leave Germany? Because it said he continued to serve in this role. So how could he continue to be a teacher at a school in Germany while being a student at Harvard? Can you make this make sense to me, please? Thanks for the like, whoever did it. Appreciate it. His senior undergraduate thesis, titled The Meaning of History, Reflections on Spengler, Toynbee, and Kant, was over 400 pages long and was the origin of the current limit on length, 35,000 words. So because of him, your paper can only be this long. He earned his Master's of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy at Harvard University in 51 and 54, respectively. So, in 50, he earned his BA. In 51, he had a Master's. A year later, he had a Master's. And 3 years later, he had a Doctorate of Philosophy. What does that even entail? I have a doctorate in thinking about stuff. That's a really interesting, that's one of those things like, well, can you perform surgery? Oh God, no. I'm fucking useless. No, my doctorate is in talking about. I can talk about stuff like what if this happened, or like, hey, well, like what if that happened? Oh shit! Like I'm good. I'm good. She's gonna come down in a minute. Super excited. Watch. In 1952, while still a graduate student at Harvard, he served as a consultant to the director of the Philosophical Strategy Board and founded a magazine, Confluence. At that time, he sought to work as a spy for the FBI. Okay, so he got his doctorate, or he got his master's in 51. In 52, while still a student, he served as a consultant to the director of the Psychological Strategy Board. Let's see, the Psychological Strategy Board was a committee of the United States executive formed to coordinate and plan for psychological operations. It was formed on April 4th, 1951. So, like a year before Kissinger was involved, this thing was formed. During the Truman administration, the board was composed of the Undersecretary of State, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, and the Director of Central Intelligence, or their designated representatives. The board's first director was Gordon Gray, later National Security Advisor during the Eisenhower administration. The board was created in response to the growth of Office of Policy Coordination covert activities during the Korean War. What is this? It's like I'm reading fucking instructions and I don't have all the pieces in front of me. Under Eisenhower, the board became a purely coordinating body. The board's function was reviewed by the Jackson Committee, chaired by William Harding Jackson, who set up to propose future United States government information and psychological warfare programs. The committee concluded that the board had been established on the assumption that psychological strategy would be conducted separately from official policy and actions, an assumption the committee disagreed with. It was abolished September 3rd, 1953 by executive order Who Gives a Shit 10483, with its responsibilities being transferred to the Operations Coordinating Board. So it was just changed. It wasn't abolished. After World War II, this is the purpose. The atmosphere altered. Wars could not be won through bloodshed, but by winning the hearts and minds of people. Consequently, the Truman administration changed their foreign policy from traditional warfare to psychological warfare. Against us. It went from winning the wars out there to winning the psychological war in here. That's what they're saying. The government perceived Soviet actions as a threat to democracy. This was evident from the South Korean invasion by North Korea. The Psychological Strategy Board, PSB, was set up to produce propaganda that would win the opinion of people around the world and prevent the spread of communism. According to a report by the State Department, convincing a foreign official is less important than carrying an issue over his head to his people, as the people will have a greater influence on the official's action. As a result, the PSB was formed to create propaganda which subsequently turned people towards democracy. While working for the Joint Chief of Staff, historian Edward P. Lilly wrote a 1,400-page study of U.S. psychological warfare during World War II, which is available among Lilly's papers at Eisenhower Library in Albany, Kansas. Lilly also wrote a book chapter on the PBS. Wrote a book chapter on the PSB. Were they not expecting somebody to actually ever read this or something? Types of propaganda. The PSB defined psychological warfare as any non-military action which influences public opinion or foreign policy interests. This, therefore, includes, but is not limited to, trade, economic aid, cultural and educational exchange, threats to use force, and diplomacy. Buzzwords diplomats and politicians used carefully selected words and phrases like Israel is ironclad, like our commitment to Israel is ironclad. It's always ironclad. Referred to as buzzwords to shape policies and influence domestic and international opinion. The most popular buzzword was containment because it allowed U.S. officials to present their foreign policy objectives as noble, restrained, and fundamentally defensive. Initially, the Soviet Union used buzzwords to promote their Hate America campaign, which was launched on January 25th, 1951. Man, it's like they all got the same idea at the same time for some strange reason. The campaign emphasized the corruption of big businesses in America and accused them of attempting to dominate the world. Gee, which one came true? Huh. Kind of sounds like they were right. The Soviets, on the other hand, were portrayed as champions who were trying to overthrow the capitalists, such as America. Many people in the international community believed the Soviet propaganda. The U.S. adopted the Soviet strategy to win the hearts and minds of people. See, for me, I don't need to hear Soviet propaganda unless this happens to be Soviet propaganda. But for me, reading, what they officially want me to know, that shit seems to sway me against the country. Radio programs were transmitted to countries behind the Iron Curtain, such as Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, because the USSR could not block this form of propaganda as they could not stop radio waves. Some radio series, such as Voice of America, VOA, were aired in Latin America as well. The programs were designed to accentuate America's successes and portrayed the U.S. as a superior nation. Each satellite country had a different program aimed towards them, which focused on the issues that would attract the people towards democracy. So this is a government agency that existed to specifically propagandize the United States or whoever was necessary. And then it said the board was created, being transferred to the Operations Coordinating Board, which is the Operations Coordinating Board, OCB, was a committee of the United States Executive, That's weird. What, the United States Executive what? Created in 1953 by President Eisenhower's Executive Order 10483, which tasked the oversight of United States covert operations, which was tasked with the United States. Has to do with the Eisenhower speech, talking about, the military industrial complex? Some scary shit, man. Eisenhower simultaneously gave secret instructions specifying additional functions for the new entity. The board, which reported to the National Security Council, was responsible for integrating the implementation of national security policies across several agencies. An important part of its mandate was to act as the President's coordinating committee for the most incendiary secret foreign policy actions, such as covert operations. The board's membership was to include the Undersecretary of State, who was to chair the board, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, the Director of Foreign Operations Administration, the Director of Central Intelligence, and the President's Special Assistant for Psychological Warfare. Jesus Christ. The board's membership was to include the Undersecretary of State, who was the chair of the board, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, the Director of Foreign Operations Administration, the Director of the Foreign Operations Administration, the Director of Central Intelligence, CIA, and the President's Special Assistant for Psychological Warfare. Didn't know that existed. Also authorized to attend were the President's Special Assistant for National Security Affairs and the Director of the United States Information Agency. I mean, I could just keep clicking on these and it would just The creation of the board was a recommendation of the Jackson Committee, chaired by William Hardin Jackson, set up to propose future United States government information and psychological warfare programs. Exact same thing the other thing said. Copy and paste. So who made that? The same committee recommended the existing Psychological Strategy Board be abolished. The OCB was originally a separate body but became an official part of the NSC with Eisenhower's issuance of Executive Order 10700 in 1957. So I could just, like I say, keep clicking on things, but let's go back to our boy who brought us here to begin with, Kissinger. Kissinger was the one that was early academic career. Yeah, in 52, while still a graduate at Harvard, he served as a consultant to the director of the Psychological Strategy Board. So while this thing was at its, because it started in 51 and ended in 53, so while it was at its most powerful, he was a consultant of this kid and this 20-something. I mean, he's got to be, wait. He was 15. In 43, he was 20. Okay, so no, now he's 32. So that makes so much more sense. At that time, he sought to work as a spy for the FBI. How does that even happen? How do you say, you know what, I want to be a spy for the FBI? And they go, oh yeah, like did you fill out your application? Did you look online? Kissinger's doctoral dissertation was titled Peace, Legitimacy, and the Equilibrium, a study of statesmanship of Castlereagh and Metternich. I don't know what the fuck those words are. Stephen Grubbard, Kissinger's friend, asserted that Kissinger primarily pursued such endeavor to instruct himself on the history of power play between European states in the 19th century. How? That's so fascinating to me to think, like, how was there like some sort of information? How did you get that information? If you were wanted to know about this particular thing, the power play between European states in the 19th century, how would you find it? Where would you find it? What would be the, where would you even begin to look it up? You go to the library and hopefully the library just happens to have that book, but how would it? I mean, I don't know. In his doctoral dissertation, Kissinger's first introduced the concept of legitimacy, which he defined as legitimacy as used here should not be confused with justice. It means no more than an international agreement about the nature of workable arrangements and about the permissible aims and methods of foreign policy. An international order accepted by all of the major powers is legitimate, whereas an international order not accepted by one or more of the great powers is revolutionary and hence dangerous. I mean, it shows you how much more of a one world government we live under than you think. Thus, when after the Congress of Vienna in 1815, the leaders of Britain, France, Austria, Prussia, and Russia agreed to cooperate in the concert of Europe to preserve the peace after Austria, Prussia, and Russia participated in a series of 3 partitions of Poland In Kissinger's viewpoint, this international system was legitimate because it was accepted by the leaders of all five of the great powers of Europe. Notably, Kissinger's so fuck the people being affected by it. And that's sort of what you're seeing now is they've decided that, you know, they've named the United States and the UK and this and that as being these legitimizing superpowers, and never mind the people being affected by them. Never mind them, you know, all the Palestinians. If the U.S., Canada, Great Britain, you know, the UK, whatever, and whatever else says that Israel says that what Israel's doing is legitimate, then it's legitimate. Oh, did you get what was the what happened?
What?
What did he say? So they got a quote. So then it's 100% then, irregardless of whatever they come back as. Almost done.
What a Jew.
What are you talking about, dude? Seriously, I hear crap like that again, you're in your room. You think that'd be from me, but it's actually from South Park. Yeah, just have to all five of it. Notably, Kissinger's Primat der Aberplocken primacy of foreign policy, approach to diplomacy took it for granted that as long as the decision makers in the major states were willing to accept the international order, then it is legitimate, with questions of public opinion and morality dismissed as irrelevant. Holy shit, this is exactly what is happening right now. Do you understand? I had no intention of being able to say something like this, to prove that what's happening right now goes back to Kissinger's power. It just happens to work out this way. And this is what I try to tell you all the time. Look at what they want you to know. The story they want you to know, they assume you're not going to read. They're dumb. They tell them themselves. This is exactly what we're dealing with right now. So because of Kissinger and this thing he called, this policy he calls legitimate, I don't know. Because of this policy he calls legitimate, according to him, as long as the major superpowers in a region or whatever agree to something, that makes it legitimate. Never mind the victims of it. Never mind the public's opinion of it. If the leaders if say the United States and the UK and Australia and Canada and a few other of these countries that deem themselves to be the Western superpowers, if they decide that Israel is legitimate and Palestine isn't,
That's just it.
that's just it.
Oh, you missed it. Missed it last night. Yeah, it was last night. You had BBC on or something. And yesterday, they showed a targeted attack on Gaza.
I can't even. I'm glad I missed that.
And they were showing the footage. And I just started crying and changed the channel.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't see it. I don't watch those things.
It was.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what's happening and being boasted. Like look what we did. And there's literally no videos to the contrary. There's a story that's going around about.
Like 300 people, they set everything on fire.
There's a story going around about the 12 Israeli children that were killed. I don't know if you've heard that. A soccer field was bombed, and somehow a bomb got through and hit a soccer field where 12 Israeli children were playing, and a bunch of others were injured. Well, those were actually the Druze people, Druze, who are in the vicinity, and some of which consider themselves Jewish, but most of them are Christian and Muslim in that community. But Israel is taking credit for it and saying that they were Israelis that were killed. And I was wondering, how does that happen? How does the Iron Dome just fail? It doesn't. So Israel is who launches most of the attacks against Israel. So that's why they died, because they're not Israelis. They can die.
They said it, they showed footage. It was in retaliation. What they did to Gaza was in retaliation to the missile attack that was launched into Israel.
That killed the 12 children, yeah.
That was just yesterday or whatever?
Mm-mm.
Or the night before?
It was a couple days ago, but yeah.
So, and they showed all these bombs, and it's like, okay, you're not showing us where they came from, where they're going to. You're just showing bombs, random bombs in the sky. That also could be fireworks. And
Well, what it is Israel agrees to, Israel is coordinating it. So we're going to shoot X amount of projectiles into the sky, and these coordinates have the Iron Dome all set up to fire at this place. And they do, and then they say, look, we were shot at by these people that don't have fucking houses or cars, but they have thousands of dollars worth of rockets.
so
Now we're gonna fuck them up.
bomb their little fucking shacks that they just built out of random wood they found.
With our United States fighter jets.
And we're just gonna bomb them and set everything. Schools and hospitals on fire.
Well, the thing is, though, you have to understand that Hamas has a bunch of infrastructure, a bunch of tunnels, the human shields. So they run their tunnels underneath schools and hospitals and stuff. So Israel is actually just trying to target the tunnels. It's just the schools and hospitals.
Locked under there too.
Well, they just happen to be on top. So
Saddam is there.
it makes sense. It makes sense. God bless America. Let's see. Approach to diplomacy took for granted the legitimate. His dissertation also won him. Right. So again, this is pretty interesting. His whole primacy of foreign policies, his whole approach to foreign policy, approach to diplomacy, took it for granted that as long as the decision makers of the major states, were willing to accept the international order, then it is legitimate, with questions of public opinion and morality dismissed as irrelevant. As long as they, the leaders, the Jews at the top, say it's legitimate, it doesn't matter what we think. It is right here. I am reading you what they want us to know. Any of you could go look this up. Any of you can look up the Henry Kissinger thing and you'll find this exact same shit. His dissertation also won him the Senior Charles Sumner Prize, an award given to the best dissertation from legal, political, historical, economic, social, or ethnic approach dealing with any means or measures tending toward the prevention of war and the establishment of universal peace. So, establishing an order by killing people, never mind what the public wants. Oh my God. Never mind what the public wants. Never mind the morality of it. That won him the best. He's the best because he came up with that? The prevention of war and the establishment of universal peace by a student under the Harvard Department of Government. The Harvard Department of Government. It was published in 1957 as a world restored. Metternich, Kasselrach, and the Problems of Peace, 1812 to 1822. What? Kissinger remained at Harvard as a member of the faculty in the Department of Government, where he served as the director of the Harvard International Seminar between 1951 and 1971. For 20 years. Now, again, that's 51. So now we're back to... I mean, the timeline's so fucked up here. 51, he got his BA, right? He hadn't even gotten his doctorate. I can't even keep up with it. In 1955, he was a consultant to the National Security Council's Operations Coordinating Board. So again, he's a consultant on how to use propaganda against the Goyim worldwide. How to manipulate the public. I mean, this is fucking insane. During 1955 and 56, he was also study director in nuclear. He was also study director in nuclear weapons and foreign policy at the Council on Foreign Relations. The Council on Foreign Relations, another one of those private meetings with the rich and powerful, has a study director in nuclear weapons and foreign policy. He released his book, Nuclear Weapons and Foreign Policy, the following year. The book, which criticized the Eisenhower administration's massive retaliation nuclear doctrine, caused much controversy at the time by proposing the use of tactical nuclear weapons on a regular basis to win wars. My God, this guy is a psycho. That same year, he published A World Restored, a study of balance of power politics in post-Napoleonic Europe. It's just crazy. This is crazy. From 56 to 58, Kissinger worked for the Rockefeller Brothers Fund as director of its Special Studies Project. I gotta see that, Special Studies Project. The Special Studies Project was a study funded by the Rockefeller Brothers and conceived by its then president, Nelson Rockefeller, to define the major problems and opportunities facing the U.S. and clarify national purposes and objectives, and to develop principles which could serve as the basis of future national policy. Seems strange, man. That is a strange thing for random citizens to just be putting their money into. The study ran between 56 and 60. Nelson recruited Kissinger, who was then on the faculty of Harvard University, as director of the project, and he had first met Kissinger in 55. A year later, he was like, "You're the guy." He also brought on board figures including Edward Teller, Charles Percy, Dean Rusk, John Gardner, president of the Carnegie Corporation. Oh, that's John Gardner, the president of the Carnegie Corporation. And Henry Luce, along with his brothers Lawrence and John D. III. 6 panels were constituted that looked at sweeping issues ranging from military security strategy to foreign policy, to international economic strategy and Defense Department and governmental reorganization. Man, that is fucking deep. The seven subpanels were: Panel 1, International Objectives and Strategies, chaired by Dean Rusk. The report was written mostly by August Heckscher. Panel 2, International Security Objectives and Strategy, directed by Kissinger. Panelists include Frank Altschul, Gordon Dean, James B. Fisk, Roswell Gilpatrick, Townsend Hoops, Henry Luce, Lawrence Rockefeller, Edward Teller. You know a lot of Roswells and Townsends, do you? Carol L. Wilson, and economist Arthur Smithies. Panel 3, International Economic and Social Objectives and Strategy, chaired by Milton Katz, of course. Harlan Cleveland was a panelist. Milton Katz. Panel 4, U.S. Economic and Social Policy, chaired by Thomas B. McCabe. Panel 5, Utilization of Human Resources, chaired by John W. Gardner. Panel 6, U.S. Democratic Process, chaired by James A. Perkins. Panel 7, The Moral Framework of National Purpose, chaired by Richard McKeon. The report, written by Robert Heilbronner, was never published. The military subpanel's report was rush released much earlier than the others, about 2 months after the USSR launched Sputnik in October 1957. It was given prominent treatment on the front page of the New York Times, selling thousands of copies and garnering unprecedented influence. Many of its major recommendations, principal among them a massive arms buildup to counter perceived Soviet military superiority, were adopted by U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower in his State of the Union address in January of 1958. Wow. The project was finally published in its entirety in 1961 as Prospect for America, the Rockefeller Panel Reports. The archival study papers are stored in the Rockefeller Archive Center at the family estate. Portions of the papers are still restricted over 4 decades after the report was published. That's it. That's all that has. That's all you can find on that. That was the Special Studies Project. That's just one of the things I just happened to click on for the fuck of it. And that's what you find. You know, I didn't know that was going to say anything like that. Back to Kissinger. He served as the director of the Harvard Defense Studies Program between 58 and 71. Didn't know Harvard did that. In 1958, he also co-founded the Center for International Affairs with Robert R. Bowie, where he served as its associate director. Man, he must have been so fucking busy to be all these places at once. Outside of academia, he served as a consultant to several government agencies and think tanks, including the Operations Research Office, the Arms Control and Disarmament Agency, the Department of State, and the Rand Corporation. Jesus Christ. Keen to have a greater influence on U.S. foreign policy, Kissinger became foreign policy advisor to the presidential campaigns of Nelson Rockefeller, supporting his bids for Republican nomination in 60, 64, and 68. Wow. Same guy lost a bunch of times, huh? Kissinger first met Richard Nixon at a party hosted by Claire Booth Luce, L-U-C-E, Luce, I don't know, in 1967, saying that he found him more thoughtful than expected. He didn't think Goyam could be so thoughtful. During the Republican primaries in 1968, Kissinger again served as the foreign policy advisor to Rockefeller, and in July 1968 called Nixon the most dangerous of all the men running to have as president. Initially upset when Nixon won the Republican nomination, the ambitious Kissinger soon changed his mind about Nixon and contacted a Nixon campaign aide, Richard Allen, to state he was willing to do anything to help Nixon win. After Nixon became president in January '69, Kissinger was appointed the National Security Advisor. What? How does that happen? How do you publicly call this man the most dangerous man running, and then he's like, you know what? Why don't you be my national security advisor? Oh my God. By this time, he was arguably one of the most important theorists about foreign policy ever to be produced by the United States, according to his official biographer, Niall Ferguson. Foreign policy, later roles, public perception. 2014 poll of American International Relations scholars conducted by the College of William and Mary ranked Kissinger as the most effective Secretary of State in the 50 years prior to 2015. In 1972, Time commented that a streak of suspicion seems to underlie all that he does, and his jokes about his paranoia have an uncomfortable edge of truth. He was so often seen escorting Hollywood starlets that the Village Voice charged he was a secret square posing as a swinger. I mean, nobody would find this man attractive. Come on. Females, you think he's attractive? The insight power is the ultimate aphrodisiac, right, is wisely attributed to him, although Kissinger was paraphrasing Napoleon Bonaparte. Right, because everybody was like, how the fuck does he keep getting women? Must be because he's so powerful, because he is fucking ugly. Critics on the right, such as Ray Takia, have faulted Kissinger for his role in the Nixon administration's opening to China and the secret negotiations with North Vietnam. Takia writes that while rapprochement with China was a worthy goal, the Nixon administration failed to achieve any meaningful concessions from the Chinese officials in return, as China continued to support North Vietnam and various revolutionary forces throughout the Third World. This sounds just like what they run with, what Trump runs with now. Nor does there appear to be even a remote indirect connection between Nixon and Kissinger's diplomacy and the communist leadership's decision after Mao's bloody rule and move away from communist economy towards state capitalism. There's an indirect connection between Nixon and Kissinger's diplomacy and communist leadership decision. Historian Jeffrey Kimball developed the theory that Kissinger and the Nixon administration accepted the South Vietnamese collapse, provided a face-saving descent interval passed between U.S. withdrawal and defeat. Are you kidding me? The idea that Kissinger And the Nixon administration, in his first meeting with Zhu Enlai in 1971, Kissinger laid out in detail the settlement terms that would produce such a defeat, such a delayed defeat, total American withdrawal, return of all American POWs, and a ceasefire in place for 18 months or some period, in the words of historian Ken Hughes. On October 6, 1972, Kissinger told Nixon twice that the terms of the Paris Peace Accords would probably destroy South Vietnam. I also think that Thieu is right that our terms will eventually destroy him. However, Kissinger denied using a decent interval strategy, writing, "All of us who negotiated the agreement on October 12th were convinced that we had vindicated the anguish of a decade not by a decent interval, but by a decent settlement." Johannes Kadura offers a positive assessment of Nixon and Kissinger's strategy, arguing that the two men simultaneously maintain a plan A of further supporting Saigon and a plan B of shielding Washington should their maneuvers prove futile. According to Kadura, the decent interval concept has been largely misrepresented. In the Nixon Kissinger sought to gain time, make the North turn inward, and create a perpetual equilibrium rather than acquiescing in the collapse of South Vietnam. See, it's funny because I read a lot of this and I think about what Kissinger was a part of before that, the PSB, the psychological whatever strategy board, and how code words and phrases and shit were a main part of their thing. Let me see yours for a second. I just need to wet my whistle.
Ew.
Thank you. Kissinger's record was brought up during the 2016 Democratic Party presidential primaries. Hillary Clinton had cultivated a close relationship with Kissinger, describing him as a friend and a source of counsel during the Democratic primary debates. Clinton touted Kissinger's praise for her record as Secretary of State. In response, candidate Bernie Sanders criticized Kissinger and said, "I am proud to say that Henry Kissinger is not my friend. I will not take advice from Henry Kissinger." Kissinger was an immensely beloved figure within China. The Chinese news service described him in his obituary as someone who had a sharp vision and a thorough understanding of world affairs. I'm really starting to question my whole thought, man. Legacy and reception. Kissinger has generally received a polarizing reception. Some have portrayed him as a strategic genius who was willing to act in a unitarian manner. Others have portrayed his foreign policy decisions as immoral and profoundly damaging in the long run. Positive views. Historian Niall Ferguson has argued that Kissinger is one of the most effective secretaries of state in American history. The editorial board of the Wall Street Journal stated that in the aftermath of his death, Kissinger was a target of both the right and the left in those perilous Cold War years, often unfairly. The article noted that he was often criticized by American conservatives for overlooking human rights in China, while saying he had no illusions about the Communist Party or its nationalistic ambitions. His view was that the U.S. and China had to achieve some modus vivendi to avoid war despite their profound cultural and political differences, while claiming that the alternatives then as now, weren't usually democracy advocates of the left's imagining. See, the thing is, why does either side, why do government people want to take over other places? Like, are we really? Does anybody really want to take over the United States? Is that a thing? You know, like why does that exist in our narrative that we got to be safe from the Chinese trying to blah blah blah. They were often communists who would have aligned themselves with the Soviets. The U.S. provided covert aid to Allende's political opponents, but declassified briefings from the time show the U.S. was unaware of the military coup that deposed him. Kissinger wasn't responsible for Augusto Pinochet's coup or its bloody excesses. Chile eventually became a democracy. Cuba remains a dictatorship. Okay, that was his positives. Let's look at his negatives, which are longer. A number of journalists, activists, and human rights lawyers accused Kissinger of being responsible for war crimes during his tenure in government. Some sought civil and even criminal penalties against Kissinger, but none of these attempts were successful. In September 2001, relatives and survivors of General Renee Schneider filed civil proceedings in federal court in Washington, D.C. The suit was later dismissed. In April 2002, a petition for Kissinger's arrest was filed in the High Court in London by human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell, citing the destruction of civilian populations and the environment in Indochina during the years 1969 through 1975. The petition was rejected one day after filing. You know how the government's good like that. I wonder if he's still alive. Let's see, is he still alive? He's still alive. One of his most prominent critics was American-British journalist and author Christopher Hitchens. Hitchens authored The Trial of Henry Kissinger, in which he called for the prosecution of Kissinger for war crimes and crimes against humanity and for offenses against common or customary or international law, including conspiracy to commit murder, kidnap, and torture. That's pretty fucking big time. American chef and TV personality Anthony Bourdain wrote in A Cook's Tour, "Once you've been to Cambodia, you'll never stop wanting to beat Henry Kissinger to death with your bare hands. Witness what he did, and you'll never understand why he's not sitting in the dock at The Hague next to Milosevic." That's pretty heavy duty, like diarrhea. Author Robert D. Kaplan and historian Nell Ferguson have disputed these notions and argued that there's a double standard in how Kissinger is judged in comparison to others. Sure. They have defended Kissinger by arguing that American power to advocate for human rights in other nations is often counterproductive and limited, that taking into consideration geopolitical realities is an inevitable part of any effective foreign policy, and that there are utilitarian reasons to defend most of the decisions of his tenure. See what I mean? They never deny what's being said. They just say, "Oh, you can't say that. You're misunderstanding." Care about these other perspectives. Family and personal life. Kissinger married Annalise Ann Fleischer, born November 6, 1925 in Fürth, Germany. On February 6, 1949, they had 2 children. Oh, he married her on February 6, 1949. They had 2 children, Elizabeth and David, and divorced in 1964. In 1955, he met Austrian poet Ingeborg Bachmann during a symposium at Harvard. The two had a romantic relationship that lasted several years. On March 30th, 1974, he married Nancy McGeans. They lived in Kent, Connecticut, and in New York. Kissinger's son David served as an executive with NBC Universal Television Studio before becoming head of Conoco, Conan O'Brien's production company, in 2005. Son of the guy who was all about how to manipulate the people. His son is now the president of the head of production of one of the biggest production companies. He was an executive with NBC Universal Television Studios. Like that. Come on. Kissinger underwent in February '82 at the age of 58. Henry Kissinger underwent coronary bypass surgery. On May 27, 2023, he turned 100. Kissinger described diplomacy as his favorite game in a 1973 interview. His death, I hope it said it was long and painful. Kissinger died from heart failure at his home in Kent, Connecticut on November 29, 2023 at the age of 100. At the time of his death, he was last living former U.S. cabinet member who served in the Richard Nixon administration. He was survived by his wife, Nancy McGeans Kissinger, 2 children, and David and Elizabeth, and 5 grandchildren. His death was announced by Kissinger Associates. His consulting firm, Kissinger Associates, announced that the funeral would be private. He was buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Kissinger was widely admired within China and praised by the Chinese Communist Party. Seems strange. Government figures on state media uniformly released posts. Now the comment section is open. Weird. Where the fuck is... I've been wondering what's been happening. I just been talking. The comment section wasn't open? What's that mean? That's so confusing. Nope.
Hey, Dad, look at my character. Remember him? Watch this. I can shoot eye lasers. Like, I'm as strong as Superman and as fast as Flash.
Sounds like you're pretty
shoot eye
ultimate.
lasers, I have ultra speed, and I can fly.
Sounds pretty ultimate.
Let's see if you can handle it.
I want to know what was going on with the comments. It seems like I'm being censored again, and I don't like it. Knock, 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 knock. Hello? Hello, hello. Do you have any rice? Rice, baby. Won't you come at me? Look you up. Oh, excuse me.
Ow, why would he punch me? Sweetheart, tell her this is cute. That's what she was just arguing with us about. I didn't know there were holes here.
She got freaked out when she realized there was holes in the cider burn.
It's supposed to be that way. It's the style.
You look like a lady from the 70s. You look at Mrs. Roper.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, don't do that.
They said, but Mrs. Roper.
No,
was a
actually,
cool
it's
cat.
more of a Jan outfit.
No.
It's not
No rice?
Lizzie, Jan.
Yeah, I got rice.
Oh.
That's what our water plants will look like. So I just ordered the base.
I'm going back to make a
$4 or
night.
$5. It should be coming soon.
I'm going to
So-
make a night.
No, you're not. Stay out of my house. Dude, we just got the smell out. It's too bad nobody's tall enough to reach up there without climbing on a bench.
Yeah, too bad.
Move stuff around and find it. Cover. Come on. You'll find it.
Ice, baby.
Just got the smell out. It is. It's true. Now little girls stink.
What?
Little girls stink.
Really? She stinks?
All
No.
little girls do. Rosie stinks. Bella stinks.
Bella stinks?
They smell like little girl stuff.
Little girl stuff. You can't
Oh.
go to the basement yet.
Poofy.
It's not up here. It should be up here. Like, if I'm
It's
looking
not
at
up
it.
there.
It's not up.
It should really be up here. I usually have a full thing of rice up here.
Maybe somebody got married and
Or
you didn't know.
phone.
I have phone rice, but I don't want to eat that.
No, don't eat your phone rice. I have non-phone rice.
I'm starting to think you don't.
I do. I know I have it in the basement. I just don't know if I have it up here. You want? How much is in here? Oh shit! It's rich.
Doesn't have to be a lot. Oh, I don't want that though.
I know. I was just saying that's ripped. It's regular garbage. Yeah. All right, let me go to the basement.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Don't touch me. That is rude. Okay, I did not give you permission. I did not okay anything you're doing. Oh. Maybe John stole it.
Shut up.
Those are homemade pickles. I bet Nick would like that. Maybe John stole it.
Tell him to shut up.
What?
What?
Maybe John stole it.
Could've.
Shut up.
You gotta let Nick get one of these homemade pickles.
Oh, keep the jar.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, they love pickles.
She can't hear you. I came here for rice. I'm leaving with pickles. She ain't got no rice, so I'm leaving with pickles.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love
these
how they-
guys love pickles.
I love how they both have their heads turned the exact same, like to the exact same degree, like they planned it.
No, they're just related. I think he's still in prison.
Yeah, he better be. I don't want that guy living next to me. I dealt with that when he was young and scary.
Look at how young Chelsea is.
Right. Shortly after Keith.
Actually, before.
Maybe. She was out. She was before. She wouldn't have been out and
She was
about.
playing softball.
Well, then that was way over. Oh, it's gonna be dinner time. You know what? I could maybe strain some out of one of the dogs. Because a lot of their shit comes with rice.
That's disgusting.
What?
No, she's got it. She's just trying to
It's funny, they still got the Jim Bob cable. I say that to Angela all the time. I'm not either.
Well, they gotta find a place to live first.
No, they can just pay for fucking storage.
You know why she doesn't do that? Because she knows he's not gonna pay it, and then she'll lose all her shit.
They make way too much money for any of this shit to be happening. With what we're supposed to be, what we're being told, or what you're being told, they should have way more money. Has Jessica gotten paid? I bet you she hasn't. Yes. Oh. That's cold. I just have the I remember. That would happen every time you boil water, though.
I have a box of quote unquote emergency food that I
Don't.
bought in my work. Like,
Well, I don't need that rice. It's fine.
yeah.
I'll go
But
ask Jessica.
I just buy bags of rice and I mean I've literally got pounds of rice and flour and you know.
Sure you do stuff. Sure
Yeah,
you
I'm
do.
starting to feel like, you know.
Maybe it was confiscated.
No, it's down there. I just buried under something. I have no idea where to even look. It's like, she talks about me and my fucking messes. Fucking popcorn. Popcorn and beans.
Was the black bag legit?
No. I'm gonna look over there one more time.
It's okay. I'll go ask Jessica. She probably has some.
I'll find it. Good luck
Hopefully it
with
doesn't
that.
taste like
What
liver.
on rice?
All right, I'll see you. Thank you. I came for rice. Left with 2 jars of pickles. It's all good. Idiots listening to fucking some news talking about watermelon this, blah, blah, blah. I left to get some rice. Came with 2 jars of pickles. Homemade pickles.
You ready, Nate? It just makes me fly. That are you so fun?
Maybe.
Huh?
Yeah,
You're done?
I'm almost done. Yeah, the thing is, I'm doing the thing I always say I shouldn't do. This guy fucking doesn't matter. He's dead. Fuck him. Who gives a shit? But at the same time, you can see where certain policies come from. So. Oh no.
Can I help you?
I need rice.
I got right. Nope.
You're useless, Jessica. Oh, weird. Would Brian be asleep? Okay. Bye. Anyway, I guess I'm done. 'Cause no one's saying anything. As always, have a great day. And even more importantly, pedophiles, kill yourself.